If you look at an actual historical map of the United Kingdom today, there is this, well, it's a really fascinating problem playing out on the ground.
Oh, absolutely. It's wild.
Right. Like, millions of tourists are just completely ignoring the actual documented geography of the place.
Yeah, they really are.
Think about it. When someone lands at Heathrow and, heads into London or takes a train up to the Scottish Highlands, the traditional tourist itinerary used to be pretty rigid.
Very structured, yeah. You go to the landmarks.
Exactly. You go to King's Cross to catch a commuter train. You go to Oxford to study 12th century academia.
Right.
Or you hike a Scottish loch to appreciate the raw, untouched natural history of the earth.
Right, the real world.
But right now, on any given Tuesday, you have throngs of people bypassing the actual history of these places. I mean, they aren't looking for the real world, they're looking for ghosts.
Ghosts, I like that.
Specifically, the ghosts of a fictional boy wizard.
It is a remarkable phenomenon. I mean, we're witnessing the ultimate example of fictional cartography bleeding into, and in some cases, completely overwriting real physical space.
Overwriting it completely.
Yeah, because people aren't traveling to see a cathedral for its religious significance anymore. They're traveling to see a hallway where a fictional troll was fought in a story set in the 1990s.
And that is our mission for today. Welcome to this deep dive.
Glad to be here.
We have a massive stack of sources sitting in front of us today. I mean, we are talking incredibly extensive travel vlogs, comprehensive behind-the-scenes documentaries, and these deeply detailed theme park guides.
So much material.
Tons of it. We're pulling insights from creators who have really obsessed over this. Creators like B-Rate, The Potter Collector, Through My Lens, and Krista Travels.
They do incredible work.
They really do. And what we are going to do today is dissect the sheer physical footprint of the Harry Potter universe. Like, how does a piece of fiction fundamentally remap global tourism?
It's a huge question.
Right. So to figure that out, we have a very clear roadmap for you today. We're going to explore 3 completely distinct pillars of how people interact with this physical footprint.
Okay.
First, we are going chasing ghosts, looking at the actual historical UK filming locations. Then we are stepping into the Factory of Magic, looking at the Warner Bros. Studio tour where the actual mechanical movie making happened.
The nuts and bolts of it.
Exactly. And finally, we will look at Living the Illusion, analyzing the incredibly immersive Wizarding World theme parks at Universal Orlando.
Which is just the perfect progression for us to track.
You think so?
Oh, yeah. If you think about it from the perspective of a fan or just an observer of modern culture, it's an evolution. You start with the organic historical locations, the places that existed for centuries before the story.
Right.
Then you move into the highly controlled, manufactured environment of the film sets, and you finally arrive at the purely psychological, interactive immersion of the theme parks.
3 completely different ways to physically touch a fictional world. Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with the real world, the organic locations. We're looking heavily at a documentary by the creator B-Rate, who went on this incredibly obsessive, massive quest to visit over 60 real-life filming locations across England, Scotland, and Wales.
Over 60. That is dedication.
It's insane. And what immediately jumps out at you when you look at these locations in London is the brilliant contrast the filmmakers set up. They took the dense, mundane, urban sprawl of London and used it to sell this idea of hidden magic right in plain sight.
Which was a vital visual strategy for the success of the entire franchise.
How so?
Well, the magic in this universe isn't happening on some distant, inaccessible alien planet, right? Or in a completely fabricated fantasy realm like Middle-earth.
Right, there's no Mount Doom.
Exactly. It's happening just behind a brick wall in an alley that a normal person might walk past on their daily commute to work. So to achieve that psychological effect on the audience, the location scouts use very specific, highly recognizable, but slightly altered London landmarks.
Anchoring the impossible to the painfully ordinary.
Yes. Perfectly said.
Let's look at Leadenhall Market as the prime example of that. If you are standing in Leadenhall Market in reality, you're in this beautiful, highly ornate, covered Victorian market right in the middle of the financial district of London.
Right in the thick of it.
Yeah. Functionally, on a weekday evening, it's packed with city workers in suits grabbing a pint after work. It's loud, it's corporate, it's deeply mundane in its actual use.
Very everyday.
But visually, it has these stunning painted ceilings and cobbled floors. So the filmmakers took that specific aesthetic and used it for the exterior shots of Diagon Alley and the entrance to the leaky cauldron.
Right. They took a place of modern finance and completely recontextualized it as the gateway to the magical economy.
Which is just so clever. And speaking of finance, we really have to talk about Australia House.
Oh, Australia House. That is perhaps the most perfect example of how high-level location scouting actually works.
Paint a picture for us.
So in the real world, it's the diplomatic mission of Australia in the United Kingdom. It is a working government building. But if you walk inside, it features this staggering, cavernous exhibition hall.
It's massive.
It's huge. We're talking about vast expanses of imported Australian marble, towering columns, and these massive, heavy crystal chandeliers hanging from the ceiling.
It looks exactly like you would imagine a wizarding bank run by goblins to look.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And think about the architectural language of that space.
What do you mean?
Why does a diplomatic mission look like that? It's designed to convey institutional weight, wealth, permanence, and honestly, a slight sense of intimidation to anyone who walks in.
Oh, wow. Yeah. You feel small.
Exactly. So the filmmakers didn't have to spend millions of dollars building a set to convey the grand, overwhelming institutional intimidation of Gringotts Bank. They simply rented a space that was already psychologically engineered to make a human being feel small and respectful.
That is amazing. They basically hijacked the architecture's original intent.
They absolutely did.
That is brilliant. But my absolute favorite detail from the sources regarding the London locations has to be the train stations, specifically St. Pancras Station and King's Cross.
Oh, this is a great story.
It's so funny. Now, if you're familiar with the story at all, you know that platform 934 is located at King's Cross Station. That is a fundamental piece of the lore.
Everybody knows King's Cross.
Right. But according to the B. Reet documentary, there is this incredible historical quirk about how they handled the exterior shots. King's Cross, as a building, was constructed in the 1850s.
Okay.
However, prior to its massive modern renovation that happened recently, it had this really ugly, purely utilitarian 1960s-style concrete extension slapped right onto the front of it.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, it looked like a brutalist bus terminal blocking the classic architecture.
Which presents an absolute nightmare scenario for a director and a cinematographer trying to establish a timeless, magical, and somewhat romantic aesthetic.
Exactly.
I mean, 1960s brutalist concrete does not scream gateway to a magical boarding school. It screams bureaucratic infrastructure.
Totally. So the producers looked at this 1960s concrete entrance to the actual canonical King's Cross and basically said, absolutely not, we cannot put this on film.
So what did they do?
Well, when they needed an awe-inspiring exterior shot of the station, like the famous scene where the magical flying car takes off into the sky, they just walked literally next door and filmed the exterior of the St. Pancras Renaissance Hotel instead.
That's right.
And if you look at St. Pancras, it is this stunning, dramatic, towering red brick Gothic masterpiece. It has spires, it has sweeping archways. They essentially lied to our eyes.
They really did.
They took the name of one station and slapped it onto the gorgeous architecture of the building next door.
What's fascinating here is how the visual language of the films ruthlessly prioritizes feeling over geographical accuracy.
Right, it's all about the vibe.
Exactly. They understood that the audience needed to feel a sense of awe, history, and transition when looking at the train station. St. Pancras delivers that Gothic grandeur perfectly, even if it is technically the wrong building on the map.
Yeah, who cares about the map?
Right. It's a recurring theme in how they constructed this entire world.
Mm-hmm.
They were chasing an emotional resonance, not a documentary reality.
Which inevitably causes a lot of confusion for modern tourists who show up at King's Cross expecting the towering Gothic spires, only to realize they're looking at the wrong building entirely.
I'm sure the locals get asked about it all the time.
Oh, I bet. Which brings us to the ultimate example of prioritizing feeling over geography. Hogwarts Castle itself.
Yes.
If you actually look at the real-life locations that make up Hogwarts in the films, it's a massive geographical Frankenstein's monster. I really don't think people realize how fractured the shooting locations really were.
Frankenstein's monster is the perfect analogy. There is no single Hogwarts castle sitting on a hill somewhere in Scotland. The building, as it exists in the minds of the audience, simply does not exist in reality.
It's wild. They literally stitched together a cathedral here, a library there, and a Scottish lock 400 miles away, to create a single, unbroken, cohesive castle in the viewer's mind.
It's an editing marvel.
When you look at the list of ancient architecture they utilized, it is staggering. Let's break it down. First, you have Alnwick Castle up in Northumberland.
Right, the big fortress.
Yeah, this is an incredible fortress, and they used it for the sweeping exterior shots, specifically the wide, pristine lawns where the students are learning to fly their broomsticks for the first time. It has that classic defensive castle silhouette.
Iconic.
But then the camera cuts to an interior shot, and suddenly, geographically, you have been teleported hundreds of miles south to Oxford.
And Oxford brings a completely different atmospheric weight to the production.
It really does.
They use Christ Church and New College in Oxford for the cloisters and the courtyards. When the characters are walking through those covered stone walkways, surrounded by manicured grass squares, you are looking at the pinnacle of historic British academia.
You really feel the academic weight in those specific scenes. It feels like a place of intense historical study.
Yes.
But then the narrative gets a bit darker. A troll attacks, or there is bloody writing found on a wall. And suddenly the visual language shifts again and they move into the cathedrals.
Right, the cathedral.
They use Gloucester Cathedral, which is famous for these incredible, intricate, fan-vaulted ceilings. They use those specific corridors for the creepier, more claustrophobic moments.
It completely changes the mood.
And then they brought in Durham Cathedral. Durham has these massive, thick, imposing Norman pillars. It provides a much heavier, almost oppressive feel compared to the delicate Gothic arches of Gloucester.
And they also went out to Lacock Abbey in Wiltshire, right?
Yeah, to shoot various other classrooms and winding corridors.
And we absolutely cannot forget the Bodleian Library at Oxford, which is a marvel in itself. It served double duty for the production.
Oh, tell me about that.
So the incredible Divinity School, with its carved stone ceiling, became the Hogwarts Hospital wing.
Right.
Meanwhile, Duke Humphrey's Library, which is this ancient, hushed room full of priceless historical texts, served as the restricted section of the Hogwarts Library.
That is so cool. Oh, and they even went so far as to use Harris School, which is one of the oldest and most prestigious boarding schools in England, for Professor Flitwick's charms classroom.
Which just adds another layer of reality to it.
But wait, hang on. Think about what you just described. If you are an editor, you're taking a shot of an actor walking out of a room in a boarding school in London, cutting to them walking down a hallway in a cathedral in Gloucester, and then cutting to them standing in a courtyard in Oxford.
It's dizzying.
And the audience registers it as one single building. So I have to ask you, does knowing that Hogwarts is actually just 10 different historical buildings taped together by editors and location scouts ruin the magic for you? Or does it make the reality of filmmaking cooler?
Oh, it absolutely makes it cooler. And there is a very specific psychological reason why.
I'm listening.
If we look closely at the psychology of the viewer, the reason this geographical patchwork works so seamlessly is because of what we might call the authenticity of the stone.
The authenticity of the stone. I love that phrase. What exactly does that mean for the viewer sitting in a movie theater?
Well, by anchoring a fictional magical world in authentic 11th to 19th century British architecture, the filmmakers subliminally borrowed centuries of real history, real weight, and real gravitas.
So our brains just kind of feel it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you look at the walls of Gloucester Cathedral on a screen, even if you don't know it's Gloucester Cathedral, your brain instinctively registers that those stones were carved by human hands hundreds of years ago.
Right.
You cannot fake the way natural light falls through medieval stained glass. You cannot digitally replicate the precise, heavy way that footsteps echo in a genuine Norman crypt.
Because it grounds the fantasy in a tangible, undeniable reality?
Yes. It tells the viewer, implicitly, this world is old, it is permanent, and it has incredible weight. If they had just built all those hallways out of plywood and plaster on a soundstage, it would have felt hollow.
It's totally artificial.
Right. By using the real cathedrals and abbeys, they didn't just borrow the look of the buildings, they borrowed the psychological impact of the history embedded in those walls.
That makes total sense. They are hijacking the reverence we naturally feel in a cathedral and applying it to a fictional school.
Precisely.
And that exact same principle of borrowing real-world gravitas extends to the natural landscapes they use, too. The Beirut documentary spends a massive amount of time up in the wild highlands of Scotland and the surrounding British wilderness.
Oh, the wilderness shots are stunning.
Because, of course, Hogwarts isn't just a building, it requires vast, untamed grounds.
It is the necessary visual transition from the manicured, civilized, heavily populated world of London to the untamed, ancient, and deeply unpredictable magic of the natural world.
Right, the landscape itself becomes a character.
Definitely.
Let's trace that landscape. They used the Black Park in Buckinghamshire to represent the edge of the Forbidden Forest, and it's where they originally placed the set for Hagrid's hut. It has this incredibly dense, dark canopy.
Very foreboding.
Then they used Virginia Water in Surrey for the lush, forested banks of the Black Lake. That's where Harry has his first interaction with the hippogriff. But as the story gets darker, the locations get harsher.
You do.
Have you ever seen photos of Malham Cove in North Yorkshire?
The massive limestone pavement, yes.
It is this massive, weird, deeply unsettling expanse of deeply grooved limestone. It almost looks like the surface of an alien planet, or the moon.
It really does.
They use that specific location for the scenes in the final movies where Harry and Hermione are on the run, camping in a tent, totally isolated from the rest of the world.
Which perfectly reflects the isolation and the harsh, unforgiving reality of their situation at that point in the narrative.
Yeah, it's not a cozy boarding school anymore.
Not at all. They're exposed on the jagged edge of the world. The location work is doing the heavy lifting for the emotional tone there.
And then you have the sweeping Scottish locks. This is the true visual soul of the Hogwarts exterior.
Oh, absolutely.
When you picture Hogwarts, you picture it reflecting in a vast, dark body of water. They went to Loch Ative, they went to Loch Arkaig, and the documentary highlights Loch Eilt in particular.
What's special about Loch Eilt?
Loch Eilt features this tiny, iconic little island topped with a cluster of very distinctive pine trees. The filmmakers used that exact island as the site for Dumbledore's grave.
Ah, right. It's so recognizable.
And of course, we have to talk about the absolute pinnacle of Harry Potter location tourism. The Glenfinnan Viaduct.
The sweeping concrete railway bridge with the 21 arches curving through the Scottish mountains.
That's the one. It is the bridge where the Hogwarts Express is chugging along, blowing thick white steam into the air, and the flying car is dodging around it.
That's an iconic shot.
People literally hike for miles through the Scottish mud just to stand on a specific wet hillside so they can watch a real, functioning Jacobite steam train cross that viaduct twice a day.
Twice a day, wow.
Yeah, it is a full-blown pilgrimage. But here's the reality check. As beautiful, as historical, and as emotionally resonant as these real-world locations are, they only provided the exterior shell, right?
Right, just the surface.
They provided the organic, historical skin of the universe, the actual beating heart of the movies, the intricate props, the animatronic creatures, the massive, complex interior sets. Those couldn't be filmed in a 12th century cathedral or on a rainy Scottish hillside.
No, the weather is far too unpredictable in Scotland for that.
Exactly. And you can't go drilling holes into a protected historical abbey to hang lighting rigs.
Which brings us to a massive logistical pivot. The production had to transition from relying on the organic, uncontrollable real world to building a mechanical, entirely controlled environment.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. This takes us to the second pillar of our deep dive, the Factory of Magic.
Let's get into it.
We are talking about the Warner Bros. Studio Tour London. The making of Harry Potter, which is located in Leavesden, Watford. This is essentially the industrial outskirts of London.
Right.
Now, the statistics on this facility, pulled from sources like the incredible walkthroughs by Through My Lens and The Potter Collector, are just staggering. This tour opened in 2012, long after the movie's wrapped.
Okay.
During peak times, it hosts up to 6,000 visitors a day.
6,000.
6,000 people walking through a film studio every single day. And here's the kicker, the stat that blows my mind. TripAdvisor has reported it as the highest rated attraction worldwide every single year since it opened.
That is insane.
It carries a 4.8 star rating from over 100,000 reviews.
To maintain that level of nearly flawless visitor satisfaction, while simultaneously managing that astronomical volume of foot traffic, is a logistical and experiential marvel.
It really is.
It speaks to a very specific, a very powerful kind of consumer demand. People aren't just going there to ride a roller coaster. They are going there for something deeper.
Let's talk about the layout, because I think that plays a huge part in its success. This tour isn't just a few dusty props pushed into a hallway of an active studio like you might see on some Hollywood tours.
Right, it's not an afterthought.
No. The Harry Potter tour is permanently housed in sound stages J and K. And these aren't just repurposed warehouses. They were specially built specifically to house this attraction.
Wow.
They operate completely separate from the studio's actual working production facilities, which are right next door. They built a dedicated permanent campus to enshrine cinema history.
And what they have preserved and housed inside those massive sound stages is essentially the physical DNA of the entire film franchise. You are looking at the raw materials of the illusion.
You really are. You walk through the doors and you're immediately standing in the Great Hall. And I don't mean a replica. I don't mean the Christchurch dining hall in Oxford that inspired it.
You mean the actual set?
The actual set. You are standing on the actual set where the actors spent a decade of their lives. You're looking at the real Yorkstone floor.
Wait, they paved a soundstage with real stone.
They actually paved a soundstage with solid Yorkstone. You see the massive, heavy, physically distressed long tables, and from there it is just a relentless sensory overload of physical artifacts.
I can imagine.
You walk into Dumbledore's office, you step into a massive recreation of the Forbidden Forest, complete with atmospheric fog and giant descending animatronic spiders.
Terrifying.
Very. You go to a recreation of Platform 934 and you stand next to the actual Hogwarts Express locomotive.
It's an overwhelming concentration of detail. It's almost too much for the human brain to process in a single walkthrough.
And it doesn't stop inside. You walk outside into the backlot area, and you can literally walk up and knock on the front door of the number 4 Privet Drive house set.
Oh, that's fun.
You can stand next to the towering purple triple-decker night bus. You can go into the Sprouts greenhouse set and physically pull up an animatronic mandrake prop.
Oh, the screaming plants.
Exactly. And the entire multi-hour experience ends with what might be the most breathtaking piece of craftsmanship on the whole tour. The 1.24 scale Hogwarts castle model.
Ah, yes. The primary model used for the sweeping exterior aerial shots throughout the entire run of the films.
Calling it a model feels like a massive disservice. It is enormous. It fills an entire cavernous room.
It's a huge undertaking.
The sources note that it took 86 artists and crew members over 40 days just to build the initial version. It has over 2,500 individual fiber optic lights installed inside of it, which are programmed to simulate the tiny flickering movements of students walking through the hallways with lanterns.
Unbelievable.
It is a masterpiece of miniature architecture. But they also understand that people want to play, so they blend in interactive elements amidst the museum exhibits.
Right, it's not purely passive.
Exactly. You can do the green screen broomstick riding experience, where you put on a robe, sit on a mechanical rig, and watch a monitor as you fly over the streets of London. You can stop midway through the tour in the backlot and drink butterbeer.
And we should briefly note, this intense desire to see the physical artifacts of the filmmaking process isn't limited exclusively to the UK.
Good point.
The sources briefly note that the Warner Bros. Studio Backlot Tour over in Hollywood also features a significant Harry Potter attraction and exhibit, sitting right alongside their massive DC comic archives.
Really?
Yeah. The global demand to be physically close to these exact objects is immense.
Well, wait, let's stop and really look at this setup. It's like a museum of modern mythology. But instead of looking at ancient dinosaur bones or Roman pottery, we are looking at the skeletons of a movie franchise.
That's a great way to put it.
We're looking at complex animatronics that have been stripped of their latex skin to reveal the robotic servos underneath. We are seeing visual effects secrets explicitly laid bare.
Like pulling back the curtain.
We are looking at half-built sets that are literally held up by exposed scaffolding on the back. So here is where I get confused.
Okay, what's the confusing part?
If you process 6,000 people a day through soundstages J and K, doesn't it just feel like a crowded, noisy industrial factory? How on earth do they maintain the illusion of magic when they are quite literally turning the camera around and showing you the wires, the latex, the wooden supports, and the green screens?
It's a valid question.
Doesn't seeing the zipper on the monster suit ruin the monster?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture of why people consume behind-the-scenes content, it fundamentally changes how we understand what the visitor is actually seeking when they buy a ticket to Leavesden.
Okay, what are they seeking?
The primary appeal of the studio tour isn't the illusion of magic. If a fan wants the unbroken illusion, they can just stay home and rewatch the films on their television.
Fair point.
The appeal of the tour is a deep, profound appreciation for the craftsmanship of magic.
Craftsmanship. So it's about the labor, not the spell.
Exactly. Visitors, especially the type of person who fits the profile of the learner, someone who loves understanding complex systems, are paying a premium to see the artistry.
They want to know how it works.
They want to see the sweat, the problem solving, and the sheer staggering human effort that went into creating a believable fantasy. Consider the wand room on that tour.
The wand room is incredible.
You walk into a room filled from floor to ceiling with thousands upon thousands of wand boxes. And then you learn that every single label on every single box was individually handwritten by a graphic designer.
Wait, really? Every single one?
Every single one. The camera in the movie might have just whipped past those boxes in half a second, out of focus. But the physical object exists, fully realized.
That level of detail borders on insanity. Why do that if the camera won't even see it?
Because it creates a foundational reality for the actors, and ultimately a foundational reality for the world.
Wow.
Learning that fact doesn't ruin the magic for the visitor. It elevates it. It transforms the world of Hogwarts from a cheap digital trick into a monumental human achievement.
That is so true.
When you are marveling at the intricate practical effects, or studying the pneumatic breathing mechanism of a massive creature puppet, or realizing that an effects artist spent weeks punching thousands of individual hairs into a silicone goblin mask.
Oh my gosh.
Right. You are satisfying a deep-seated human desire to understand how things are made. It's an educational experience wrapped warmly in nostalgia.
That completely flips my perspective on the whole factory concept. So walking through soundstages J&K isn't breaking the spell at all.
Not at all.
It's revealing that the real magic wasn't a wizard waving a wand. The real magic was just the incredible, almost incomprehensible competence of thousands of artists, carpenters, engineers, and designers working together in a warehouse in Watford.
Precisely. You are standing in a monument to extreme artistic competence.
I love that.
However, while the studio tour allows you to stand behind a velvet rope, look at the props, and intellectually appreciate the craftsmanship, there is a third option.
A third option?
A final evolution. There is an option for fans who want to do more than just observe the history and more than just analyze the mechanics.
Okay.
They want to cross that velvet rope and actually live inside the fictional world as an active, participating citizen.
So what does this all mean? It means we have to pack our bags, leave the gray skies of the UK, and fly to the humidity of Florida.
Here we go.
This brings us to section 3 of our journey, stepping inside the illusion. We are talking about the wizarded world of Harry Potter at the Universal Orlando Resort.
The theme parks.
So specifically, the 2 incredibly dense, highly immersive lands they built. Diagon Alley over in Universal Studios Florida, and Hogsmeade over in Islands of Adventure.
Right.
Based on the incredibly comprehensive step-by-step guides provided by Krissa Travels and the Potter Collector, this is not just a theme park land in the traditional sense. It is a multi-million-dollar, multi-acre, live-action role-playing game.
A corporate LRP.
It is a massive corporate LRP.
The scale of immersion achieved by Universal with these 2 lands completely and irrevocably redefined the entire theme park industry standard.
Really? That much of an impact?
Oh, absolutely. It forced every other major competitor to completely rethink how they design physical spaces.
Let's really drill down into that scale because it's vital to understand what they actually accomplished. Universal didn't just build a new roller coaster and slap a plywood castle facade on the front of the queue line.
No, they went way beyond that.
They built the economy. They literally built the retail infrastructure of a fictional society.
It's astonishing.
When you walk into these lands, you don't just see a generic, brightly lit gift shop selling t-shirts. You go to Ollivanders. And Ollivanders isn't just a store, it's a wand pairing experience.
It's a show.
Exactly. It's a piece of interactive, intimate theater where a hidden actor playing a wand maker selects a guest from the crowd, and through a series of special effects, a wand literally chooses them.
You have hidden lighting effects, you have swelling musical cues hidden in the walls, you have shelves that physically rattle and move.
Right.
It is highly sophisticated interactive theater that is deliberately masking a retail space.
And Ollivanders is just the start. The list of fully realized in-universe shops they constructed is insane.
Oh, there are so many.
You have Weasley's Wizard Wheezes, which has this massive, towering, neon animated storefront. You have Madame Malkin's robes for all occasions, where you don't just grab a sweatshirt off a rack. You go to be fitted for your Hogwarts uniform. You have the Magical Menagerie, packed with plush versions of bizarre creatures. If you wander down into the incredibly creepy, purposefully dark and foreboding Nocturne Alley area, you find Borgin and Burke's, which sells dark artifacts.
It's so detailed.
You have wiseacres and scribulus for stationary ink and brass telescopes. You have honeydukes, a candy store filled with perfectly recreated chocolate frogs and every flavor beans. You have Filch's Emporium and Dervish and Bangie's. They didn't build a theme park. They effectively built a functioning high street for wizards.
And that extreme commitment to immersion extends heavily into the culinary experience, which is arguably where the theme park makes its deepest, most primal psychological connection with the guests.
Oh, but the food. Yes.
Because food grounds us in a physical reality faster than almost anything else.
Oh, the food is a masterclass in world building. You aren't just grabbing a generic theme park hot dog wrapped in foil.
Not at all.
The sources highlight how you can walk into the leaky cauldron in Diagon Alley and sit down to eat traditional, hearty, heavy British breakfast entrees.
In Florida.
Exactly. We're talking toad in the hole, bangers and mash, black pudding, things you would almost never find in a Central Florida theme park.
It's brilliant.
You can dine under the vaulted ceilings of the Three Broomsticks over in Hogsmeade. And then we have to talk about the absolute financial and cultural juggernaut, butterbeer.
Butterbeer. Butterbeer is, without a doubt, a masterclass in experiential marketing and product engineering.
Oh, so?
They took a fictional beverage that was only ever vaguely described in a book, spent millions in research and development to engineer a physical flavor profile that appeals to a massive demographic. That very specific, creamy, shortbread butterscotch concoction. And they turned it into a mandatory cultural phenomenon.
It really is mandatory.
Right.
If you go to the Wizarding World and you don't drink butterbeer, did you even go? It's the ultimate proof that you are there. You buy the drink, you take a selfie with the thick phone, creating a butterbeer mustache on your upper lip, and you have instantly validated your presence in the fictional world to all your friends on social media.
It's free marketing.
It's brilliant. But at the end of the day, it is a theme park, so we have to talk about the rides.
Of course.
And the ratings on these specific attractions, according to the travel guides, are spectacular. You have Harry Potter and the Escape from Gringotts, which is this hybrid dark ride and roller coaster sitting at a phenomenal 4.6 star rating.
Very impressive.
You have Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey, which physically takes you through the meticulously recreated halls of the Hogwarts castle, sitting at 4.7 stars. You have the family-friendly coaster, Flight of the Hippogriff, at 4.0 stars. And then you have the Hogwarts Express, which physically transports guests between the two different theme parks at 4.5 stars.
The Hogwarts Express is a particularly ingenious piece of engineering.
It really is.
It elegantly solves a massive, real-world geographical problem. How do you get guests to travel between two completely separate theme parks without breaking the illusion?
By turning the transit mechanism itself into a highly immersive ticketed attraction.
Exactly. When you sit in the cabin, you don't look out a real window to see the backlot dumpsters and the Florida swamps. The window is a screen, and you watch the lush British countryside roll by, complete with narrative events happening outside.
Okay, but I have to stop you there.
Sure. What's up?
You described Ollivanders earlier as interactive theater masking a retail space.
I did.
We've talked about the high street of shops. We've talked about the food. Think about the last time you bought a souvenir at a theme park. You knew you were being sold to, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So isn't this entire multi-acre, multi-million-dollar LARP just a brilliant, slightly cynical way to sell incredibly expensive merchandise to a captive audience?
That's a fair criticism.
I mean, you are paying over $100 just in theme park admission solely to be granted access to incredibly well-themed retail stores, where you are then expected to spend hundreds more dollars on resin wands, polyester robes, and sugar.
This raises an important question about the intersection of modern consumerism and narrative storytelling. Is it cynical? Yes, it is unapologetically commerce. Universal is a corporation.
Right.
But the crucial distinction here, the thing that makes it palatable and even joyful for the guest, is that it is strictly in-universe commerce.
Walk me through that. How does in-universe change the feeling of swiping a credit card?
Well, think about the mechanics of a traditional theme park.
Yeah.
You ride a roller coaster, the ride ends, the exit doors open, and you are immediately dumped into a brightly lit generic store.
Always.
The theme park's corporate logo is plastered on everything, the cash registers are prominent and loud, and you buy a cotton t-shirt with a cartoon character's face printed on it.
Yeah, very transactional.
The moment you enter that store, the transaction pulls you entirely out of the story. Your brain recognizes that you are no longer a participant. You are a tourist buying a souvenir. But Universal changed the paradigm. When you buy a robe at Madame Malkin's, or a wand at Ollivander's, the staff, whom they meticulously train and refer to as team members, stay in character. They treat you like a wizard who is simply shopping for your upcoming term at school. The purchase itself feels like a necessary story beat. You are engaging in the exact same economic activities that the fictional characters engaged in.
Oh, wow. So the act of spending money is actually part of the role play.
Yeah.
By removing the friction of a traditional retail transaction, they lower your psychological defense against spending.
Exactly. It removes the friction of commerce by making the commerce an integral part of the fantasy. You aren't buying a toy. You are participating in a rite of passage.
That makes so much sense.
And Universal realized that they had to demand total, uncompromising immersion to protect this psychological state. This is why the Wizarding World changed the theme park industry forever.
How so?
Before this, parks were a messy mishmash of intellectual properties, loud branding, and carnival games.
Yeah.
But if you walk through Hogsmeade or Diagon Alley, there are no Coca-Cola logos anywhere. There are no real-world references.
Really? None?
None. They built massive, towering berms and facades, so the sightlines are strictly controlled. You cannot physically see the other roller coasters in the park. It is pure, unbroken narrative continuity.
Wow.
They realized a fundamental truth about modern audiences. If you protect the illusion fiercely enough, guests will gladly, even happily, pay a massive premium just to reside within it for a few hours.
That is absolutely brilliant. They monetize the innate human desire to belong to the story.
They absolutely did.
So, bringing this all together, we have gone on quite the sweeping journey through our sources today.
It's been a lot of ground covered.
We have seen the three-part evolution of how a person can physically interact with this massive cultural juggernaut. You have the organic, centuries-old history of the real-world filming locations scattered across the UK, the awe of standing in a Norman cathedral or looking out over a Scottish loch.
Beautiful locations.
Then you have the mechanical, artistic brilliance of the Warner Bros. Studio tour in Watford, where you can study the physical craftsmanship and revere the labor of the artists.
The behind-the-scenes magic.
And finally, you have this psychological role-playing immersion of the Universal theme parks in Florida, where the line between tourist and character completely dissolves.
It represents three very different ways to interact with the exact same text, with each method satisfying a distinctly different human desire.
That's a great point. Break those down for me.
Well, the real-world locations satisfy the desire for historical connection. The studio tour satisfies the desire for intellectual understanding and appreciation of craft. And the theme parks satisfy the pure desire for escapism.
So to you, listening to this right now, I want you to take a second and reflect on your own travel persona. Think about how you like to interact with the media and the stories you love.
It's a fun exercise.
Are you the explorer, the person willing to hike through the mud and the rain to a remote Scottish loch just to stand exactly where the camera stood and feel the history?
Or are you the curious learner, the person who wants to examine the green screens, dissect the animatronics, and marvel at the handwritten labels on 1,000 wand boxes at Leavesden?
Or are you the escapist, the person who just wants to put on the robe, cast a spell with an interactive wand, drink a butterbeer, and get completely lost in the unbroken, meticulously designed illusion of Diagon Alley?
It is a fascinating question of personal identity. And looking at all of this leaves me with one final forward-looking thought that actually stretches beyond the current physical boundaries of our sources today.
Ooh, what's that?
Well, we have spent this entire time mapping how the physical tourism industry has adapted to fiction. But as technology, specifically augmented reality and virtual reality, continues to evolve at breakneck speed, will the lines between these three pillars eventually blur entirely?
Oh, that's an incredible thought. What does that actually look like in practice?
Think about the trajectory. Soon, you might not need to hike through the mud in Scotland, or fly across the ocean to London, or pay a $100 admission fee in Florida.
Okay.
With advanced, lightweight AR glasses, your own local neighborhood street could be instantly overlaid with a digital, fully interactive, hyper-realistic Diagon Alley.
Oh.
The old oak tree in your local city park could be digitally mapped to become the Whomping Willow. You could walk through a local museum, and the architecture could be dynamically transformed into Hogwarts in real time.
That is mind-blowing.
What happens to the multi-million-dollar physical tourism industry and these massive theme parks when the magic can be perfectly, seamlessly mapped onto your own backyard?
Now that is something to really chew on. What happens when the broken X-ray of our geographical map gets a completely personalized digital magical overlay?
It changes everything.
You wouldn't need to chase the ghosts. You could just summon them to your living room.
Well, that is all the time we have for today's deep dive.
It's been great. Stay curious, keep exploring your world, however you choose to map it, and we will catch you next time.